Detective Joey Quinn knew how to handle danger, lying, breaking the rules. That was just part of the job when the moment called for it. But when it came to Dexter Morgan, a man with a darkness, something about Quinn's approach felt off. Others who got too close to Dexter's secret paid the price, dead, shattered, or drowning in guilt. But Quinn? No. He stayed quiet. He kept his distance. Why didn't he confront Dexter when the puzzle pieces clicked into place? Why didn't he join the others who tried to expose the truth? Joey Quinn's silence wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, a calculated decision, because he knew something. Dexter's life followed one rule, the code. It wasn't about morality. It was about control because he only kills other killers. It shaped everything he did, from picking his victims to carrying out the kill. Every step was carefully planned, researching the target, preparing the scene, and erasing all evidence. But the code wasn't just about how he killed, it was also his shield, a way to hide the darkness inside him. Dexter was precise, but he wasn't perfect. Each kill, no matter how flawless it seemed, left behind tiny traces, small suspicions, overlooked details, or unexplained connections. For most, these traces didn't lead anywhere. But for those who noticed and decided to dig deeper, the truth was dangerously close. The code didn't protect anyone who got too close to Dexter's secret. It wasn't meant to. The code was there to protect Dexter, to keep him hidden and safe. For him, it was a way to survive. For others, it was a warning they didn't always take seriously, and when they ignored that warning, the consequences were deadly. The code gave Dexter control, but it also trapped him. It kept him in a never-ending cycle of lies and secrecy. No matter how carefully he followed the rules, the risk was always there. One slip, one person getting too curious, and everything could fall apart. For Dexter, the code wasn't just a guide, it was his life. And for those who got close to the truth, there were no second chances. The code kept Dexter alive, but everyone who knew about it can't tell the story anymore. And there it all started. Detective Joey Quinn wasn't a typical cop. He bent the rules, worked in gray areas, and had no problem taking shortcuts if it got the job done. He wasn't reckless, though. Quinn understood the system, how it worked, and where it failed. And maybe that's why he handled Dexter Morgan the way he did. Quinn wasn't blind. He noticed things about Dexter, things that didn't quite add up. The way Dexter seemed to avoid suspicion, the occasional slip in his carefully crafted persona. Most people overlooked it, but Quinn wasn't most people. He saw more than he let on, and the deeper he looked, the more it seemed like Dexter wasn't just quirky or awkward. There was something darker lurking beneath the surface.
What's he doing here?
He wanted to borrow a book.
He reads?
Yeah, he does.
Quinn was just leaving.
Kind of warm for gloves.
Good night.
Thanks for the book.
The signs were there. Unexplained connections to murders. The strange way Dexter seemed calm in chaos. Almost too calm. It would have been easy for Quinn to dig deeper, to start asking questions or following up on those unsettling clues, but he didn't. He stopped himself just short of the truth. Why? For Quinn, it wasn't fear, it was practicality. He wasn't the kind of cop who charged into situations without thinking. If Dexter really was what Quinn suspected, there were consequences to consider. What would happen if he was right? What if exposing Dexter put Quinn or others in danger? And maybe, just maybe, part of Quinn understood Dexter's world. After all, Quinn wasn't a saint. He'd covered for co-workers, leaked case information, and even taken money from a crime scene. He wasn't afraid to bend the law when the system couldn't deliver justice. If Dexter was crossing the line but taking out people who deserved it, was that really so different from Quinn's own moral compromises? Quinn's silence wasn't just a coincidence. It wasn't just ignorance either. It was a choice, a calculated decision to look the other way, to stay quiet, and to keep his suspicions buried. Because in the world Quinn lived in, sometimes the best way to survive was to leave certain secrets alone. And Dexter's secret was one Quinn knew better than to push too far. The moment that changed everything came with Oliver Saxon. Dexter's life had been a careful balancing act, hidden in plain sight, keeping his double life a secret. But Saxon tested the limits of Dexter's carefully built cover. Oliver Saxon wasn't just another name on Dexter's kill list. He was dangerous, calculating, and unpredictable. Saxon had already taken lives, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. For Dexter, he wasn't just a target, he was a threat that had to be eliminated. Surveillance cameras caught everything. Dexter standing face to face with Saxon. What unfolded was brutal and swift. Dexter grabbed a pen and drove it into Saxon's neck with calm precision, and Saxon collapsed, dead before he hit the ground. To most, it might have looked like self-defense, but to those who knew Dexter, it was something else entirely. This wasn't a desperate, panicked act to save his life. It was cold, calculated, and exact. The footage made its way to Miami Metro. Batista watched it, stunned by what he saw. The Dexter he thought he knew, a quiet, unassuming analyst, had just killed a man with unnerving calm. Questions buzzed in the air, but Joey Quinn didn't seem fazed. "Clear self-defense," Quinn said, his tone almost casual, brushing aside the doubts. But there was something in the way he said it, a slight sarcasm, a knowing edge. It wasn't just a dismissal. Quinn knew what he had seen, and he knew exactly who Dexter was. Yet he chose to shut down any further discussion. Why? Quinn's reaction was telling. He had always walked the line between right and wrong, making choices that served his sense of justice, not the law. Maybe in his eyes, Dexter's actions weren't so different. Maybe he saw Saxon's death as a necessary evil, another loose end tied up. Or maybe Quinn understood what others didn't, that digging deeper into Dexter's truth was a dangerous game, one that most people didn't survive. And so, with a single statement, Quinn put an end to the conversation. The footage was closed, the questions silenced, and Dexter's secret stayed hidden. For now. Quinn wasn't the only one who had come close to Dexter's truth, but he was one of the few who walked away unscathed. Others who learned too much paid the price in one way or another, some with their lives, others with their sanity. The truth about Dexter was a burden that few could bear, and even fewer survived. Deborah Morgan, Dexter's own sister, was the first to truly grapple with the weight of the secret. She loved her brother more than anyone, and for a long time she believed in him, believed in the man he showed the world. But when the truth came crashing down, it shattered her. She tried to come to terms with what Dexter had become, but it was too much. The guilt, the anger, the confusion, it broke her. And in the end, it destroyed her. Deborah's death wasn't just the loss of a sister, it was the loss of the one person who understood Dexter completely. Maria LaGuerta was another victim of the truth. A relentless, driven officer, LaGuerta had always suspected something about Dexter. She became obsessed with finding the Bay Harbor butcher, and in doing so, she unknowingly moved closer to the edge of a dangerous cliff. She was clever, and she gathered the pieces, but in the end, she got too close. The moment she confronted Dexter, the game was over. Dexter didn't hesitate. LaGuerta had to die. But it wasn't just her death that marked the turning point. It was what LaGuerta represented, the cost of exposing Dexter's truth. Lumen Pierce's experience was different, but just as painful. Unlike Deborah or LaGuerta, Lumen accepted Dexter's darkness. She had seen her own horrors and understood the kind of man Dexter was. For a brief time, they shared a bond, a sense of justice that went beyond the law. But once Lumen's need for vengeance was fulfilled, she realized she couldn't live in Dexter's world. She didn't want to become what he had become. So she walked away, choosing to leave behind the very man who had shown her a world of twisted justice. And then there was Quinn. He had seen the darkness in Dexter, and he knew it wasn't the same as what others had faced. It wasn't just about law and order. It wasn't about right and wrong. It was about survival. The others had all faced the consequences of knowing too much. Some died, some broke, but Quinn? He simply stepped back. He chose not to push, not to confront, and in doing so, he survived. It was a choice many would never understand, But for Quinn, it was the only choice that kept him breathing.